We are live from Super Bowl 59 here in New Orleans, Louisiana. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Hello, everybody. And I am pleased to be joined by Brian and Natalie Vines, the Army veterans and the Dallas Cowboy fans. The Motor City Madmouth show is presented by the Wounded Warrior Project and the National Football League. There you have it, live from Super Bowl 59. Well, I couldn't be more thankful to be joined by, as I said, Brian and Natalie Vines. But before we get to the heavy stuff, okay, I know that it has to be painful to be a Dallas Cowboy fan these days, okay? You hired Brian Schottenheimer. I think you should have gone Kellen Moore. All right, Brian, what do you think of that hire?
Well, let me start off by saying that the military teaches us perseverance, it teaches us loyalty, it teaches us to keep our eye on the mission, which makes us uniquely qualified to be Cowboys fans because we're loyal to the end. And it's really Jerry Jones' choice, the golden rule. He who has the goal makes the rules. And so it's his decision, and as a loyal fan, I'm going to support him on his decision.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, for people in the Detroit Lions, haven't won a World Championships in 1957 on my birthday, December 29th. Obviously, the curse of Jimmy Johnson is well aware. We know that Barry Switzer got a championship ring hand gifted by Jimmy Johnson because they were his players. And now we know the curse of Jimmy Johnson lives on. How much longer it takes the Dallas Cowboys to get to the promised land, what can anybody tell? But I think the reason why I'm tying all this in is you people are a voice of perseverance. So when you talk about segues, and that's exactly what we're going to go on, we're going to talk about some key points listed here, and then as I go ahead forward, you'll be able to tell your story. You folks met in the military in 1998, married shortly thereafter. Natalie sustained a mild traumatic brain injury from a mortar blast in Iraq, later worsened by another injury in Mosul, and then you started experiencing severe migraines and grand mal seizures, eventually causing her to medically retire after 21 years. First of all, Natalie, explain to me what that was like to go through all of that.
Well, it was tough. Having to be medically retired I was lost. Like I said, I served over 20 years in the Army. I had a purpose. I loved being around soldiers. I had a mission. I had a family. I lost that when I got out of the military. I lost that sense of purpose. I lost that family, and I didn't know where to go. I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. I suffered from guilt, depression, and I didn't know where to go. And it was there that I found Wounded Warrior Project that not only freed me in Germany when I was injured, but followed me from there home all the way through my recovery.
Oh, yeah. What was it like for you to have to experience or to go through all of that?
It was very difficult because it was a job that I was not prepared to do. It was to become a caregiver. But I willfully retired from the Army after 28 years and was there to help her as best I could. But because of organizations like the Wounded Warrior Project, they gave me the tools really to, first of all, to even identify as a caregiver, but gave me the tools of how I could better communicate with her. And a lot of people, it would pull you apart having this kind of an injury, but for us, I would say it brought us together. And it's been a love story for us. And last November, we celebrated 25 years of being married.
Beautiful. As we continue to go deeper into this conversation, and I will talk about the fact that Brian retired as an Army Colonel in 2012 after 28 years of service, became Natalie's full-time caregiver, which you mentioned. Both struggle with PTSD during their transition to civilian life. And folks, to be able to go from military life to civilian life is obviously a difficult transition, and obviously found support, like you say, through the Wounded Warrior Project. Now, you say that Wounded Warrior Project connected you to life-changing programs and even helped Natalie with her independence. All right, Natalie, how much did that help you with your independence?
Well, it put me in touch with programs like the Warrior Odyssey, which brings you to outdoor activities, things you can do with other peers that allow you to connect with other veterans with similar experiences that you go through in the military. It also, when I suffered from suicide attempts, it also put me in touch with mental health programs that put me in those programs that allowed me to process what I was going through, process the feelings of guilt, and brought Brian and I closer together and really put me on the road to recovery, where it allowed me to not go back to those thoughts and those feelings again, and put me in connection with other vets in those situations and provided me that support group that I needed. And that's literally Wounded Warrior Project saved my life.
Despite the fact that you have Brian as a caregiver, you talk about the word suicide. I know that that's a word that's commonly used in transition when you leave from the military all the way to civilian life. Few people realize the significance and value of Veterans Day. And I repeat Veterans Day because it is an important holiday that most people don't take it. I hope they don't take for granted. We all know what days you have, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, July 4th, and Independence Day. But tell me what was going through your mind in terms of the thought process of suicide, even though you have a partner that seems like he's out of the world.
Well, the thoughts was that I lost hope. I was on a lot of medications. I was overly medicated. And I didn't have a support system. I didn't believe that I had anybody.
Even though you had Brian with you.
I had Brian, but I didn't share anything with him.
Okay.
I felt I didn't want to burden him.
Okay.
I didn't want to burden anybody else. I kept everything inside. I felt like my troubles were going to burden other people.
Okay.
That I was going to, I didn't want to share those things. I felt like I would be a burden to other people. And so I kept everything within myself. And, through the process of my recovery, I began to learn that was not healthy. And getting off the medications really changed within 3 days. The way I was feeling, my outlook, and then going through the programs of the mental health programs, of seeing that I had other coping skills I could turn to, finding the support systems, really connecting back with Brian and saying, hey, even though we share the same experience, we can relate and we can share with each other in our faith. My faith grew even stronger, and that's what I needed. But I had to go through these programs and seek help and connect with these other veterans that we shared and find those 5 people that I could trust in. And it may not have been a veteran, it could be my grandparents. It could be a civilian that I really trusted in, a big brother that I had outside the military. I refer to as a big brother. But I had to finally say, hey, I need help, and raise my hand and say that. And I didn't do that before. And that was the hardest thing that I ever did in my life.
Very inspiring. One of the most impactful WWP programs was Project Odyssey, supported by the National Football League, a nature-based mental health retreat where they gain tools to manage your PTSD and build resilience. Brian now gives you a peer mentor with Project Odyssey and supports other military caregivers on their healing journey. So I want both of you to chime in on this. First, you, Natalie, what are your thoughts about where we're at this point?
NFL plays a very significant role in their contributions to the mental health. Without them, I can almost guarantee I wouldn't be alive today. Because, I didn't know about the programs that Wounded Warrior had. And when Brian reached out, I was within that program 2 weeks after my suicide attempt. And he was allowed to come with me. And together we worked through that program and we came out on top. And not ever since 2017, I've not had a suicide attempt, an ideation, or anything. I've not gone back to that day. And without the contributions of the NFL and their help through helping with the Project Odysseys and that mental health program, we could not do what we can. We could not be where we are today, and that includes not just me, but other veterans that are suffering the same experiences. To be able to have the programs that allow us to get out of isolation, and allow us to be able to get out there and help us with our anxiety, and to be able to connect with each other, we would not be able to to do what we can today to help other veterans, not just ourselves, but be able to be around other veterans to help themselves too.
All right, Brian, chime in.
So Project Odyssey is a combination of both education and also outdoor activities that brings a group of folks together, Wounded Warriors. There's individual Odysseys for both male and female, and there's couples Odysseys, which Natalie and I went through. As an individual going through the male Odyssey, I still stay in contact with a lot of the veterans that I went through that with, and they're always just a phone call away, and we check up on each other probably once or twice a month just to check in and see how we're doing. But the couples Odyssey, what it helped out Natalie is through a series of games and activities, it taught us about communication with each other, something that we were definitely lacking. It helped me to learn to share my burdens with her, something that took a lot of courage, made me feel very vulnerable, but once I did it, it was so uplifting and brought us closer together.
All right, as we reach the halfway mark of this show, Motor City Man Mountain Show is presented by Wounded Warrior Project and the NFL. I wrote a book called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Working with Visionary Leaders. One of the things I'm looking to do at Super Bowl 59 is compile as much content as I can during the course of the next 4 or 5 days. It's safe to say that Brian and Natalie Vines are going to be a part of the version 2. So with that said, I'm always looking to compile content, and I also want to spend out a special thanks to Gracie Scribner, who, as we sat around here a little bit later yesterday, came up with this incredible idea that we're now going ahead and bringing to fruition. Now, my dad served in the military for a few years over at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I actually went ahead and toured that base. One of my favorite military shows, which adds a lighthearted thing, was Gomer Pyle. I don't know if that was one of your favorite shows growing up as a kid. I did. I make it a point to watch it every time I can, so we know the military situation is a whole lot harder than what you see in Gomer Pyle. Gomer Pyle, to me, is the nicest guy that ever take verbal abuse and take it in stride. With that said, we'll back to the Wounded Warrior Project and the National Football League. A few other points I want to get to on the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Wounded Warrior Project is an official salute to service partner of the NFL. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, as Natalie has mentioned, is because of their funding to the Wounded Warrior Project, and those funds are using primarily for mental health and programs like Project Odyssey, it is saving lives. It's being impactful, and I just can't stress the importance and the helpfulness of that enough. And I would add is when soldiers leave the military, whether it's because of an injury or they retire or they just leave the service, they feel isolated. They were once part of a great family, all of a sudden now they're on their own. And if they don't get help, if they isolate, if they continue to take their medications, if someone does not break that cycle, like the Wounded Warrior Project, then they're just like Natalie, going towards rock bottom, which could be suicide. So that money is very impactful and saves lives.
All right, since 2012, the NFL has donated over $12 million to support WWP's mental health programs. That's not chump change, people. That's a lot of money. Obviously, they're looking to get more, but what are your thoughts about the $12 million that is raised up to this point? What are your thoughts about the $12 million that's been raised up to this point?
I think that is just amazing. It goes a long way to support these veterans that are having problems, and I hope that more veterans reach out to Wounded Warrior Project and take advantage of these resources. Just couldn't thank the NFL more for their support, because these veterans are definitely needed.
What about you?
I think the other aspect of it is there's a lot of similarities between professional athletes and combat veterans. That you're once part of a very close-knit team. You have different skill sets that come together to perform a specific mission, and then all of a sudden, one day that's over, and they have to transition to civilian life. And I think sitting down and talking with NFL players, there's a lot of commonalities there, and there's information that we can share to make both organizations stronger.
Okay, the partnership also provides hundreds of veterans and their families with opportunities to attend NFL games events each year, helping them connect and heal for improved mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Well, Natalie, I guess this question is directed toward you. How much have you benefited by it, and what are your thoughts about the way those programs are set up?
I think it's great. Wounded Warrior Project, they help us get out and connect by visiting and doing the visiting games and going out there connecting with the other players. And like Brian said, connecting with these other players, it's amazing how similar we are. With we all have a purpose, and when we get injured or we retire, and we lose that purpose, and then we're trying to find that identity again, and it's like, what do we do now? And then we come back together, and it's like, we're looking for what's next. And it's very similar. So just us connecting, going to those games, it's like a spirit core for us. It's just fun, it's entertaining, and it brings the veterans, the wounded veterans together to enjoy the camaraderie with each other, share our stories, and enjoy the game together.
Want to add to that, Brian?
No, I think she's absolutely right. I think that the tickets that the NFL donates to our soldiers and our service members, rather, it gives them camaraderie. It lets them come together. It lets them know, one, that they feel valued and their service is appreciated, but also gives them a sense of community with other veterans, and that's so important to overcoming isolation and those things that are associated with depression.
More than 71 people a day register for Wounded Warrior Project's free programs and services on mental, brain health, physical health, financial wellness, and long-term rehabilitative care. Our estimates show 1.6 million need our support. That's a heavy-duty number, isn't it?
It is. It needs to be more of that. It needs to be a lot more.
What about you?
I agree. I think there's a lot more out there that maybe because of pride or whatever, they're not willing to reach out and ask for that help. And I would say, if you are a veteran of any era, that you want and you need help, to reach out to woundedwarriorproject.org. There's a crisis line there they can call, and they will get you linked up with the services you need. Wounded Warrior Project is specifically focused on post 9/11 veterans. However, if a Vietnam era veteran calls in there, they will link that veteran up with a peer organization that can provide the resources that they need.
Can't believe you mentioned Vietnam because it's falling with GMTH. You know what that means? Great minds think alike.
There we go.
Now let's talk about Vietnam.
Okay.
You feel that the Vietnam veterans are the most disrespected war veterans on the planet, knowing that I don't feel enough has been done to aid those individuals.
Yeah, I agree. Her father was in during the Vietnam era. I had several cousins that were in during the Vietnam era. They were disrespected. I know that since then there's been opportunities for people to welcome them home, and Natalie and I, we welcome Vietnam veterans home when we can, but they need to know that their service is appreciated, and them as individuals and as soldiers and as Americans and patriots, we appreciate their service.
Well, I've often wondered whether or not they've ever been treated fairly, and I know full well they really haven't. That was awards should never have taken place. We'll get a little bit more lighthearted. I know we talked about some heavy-duty things. What does Veterans Day mean to both of you?
Veterans Day, it's a very emotional day, but it means that, it's service to our nation. It means giving something more to this country, sacrificing more than yourself. It's deep. And every time I think of Veterans Day, I think about the service I've given, I think about the service from past, people that are now serving, and people of the future.
What do you mean, Brian?
I would say the same thing. I like she used the word deep, because I mean it affects veterans very deeply. A lot of times people confuse what Veterans Day means as opposed to what Memorial Day means. And Veterans Days, we're celebrating those that have served and those that are still serving, and their sacrifice that they've done for our flag, which to any veteran, that is so important, that red, white, and blue, that we're prepared to give all up into our lives to protect that flag and the Constitution it represents.
So then talk about Memorial Day.
So Memorial Day is when we take time to remember the ultimate sacrifice that's been made, those that have passed in the line of duty. We think about their contributions, and we think about how they've touched us and the rights they have protected, that we get to enjoy those freedoms still today.
So we started off with pro football. Last question is going to get ready to wrap this thing up. Is this one big football game we should be more into than anything? No, we're not talking the college football national championship. We're not talking about the Super Bowl, even though we're live from New Orleans here at Super Bowl 59. What about the Army Navy game itself? They don't have names on the back of the jersey. All they have is Army and Navy. We're stamped the Air Force, but we're talking Army Navy. How much does that game mean to you, Brian?
Well, it means, as far as service pride, it means a lot. And there's a lot at stake when the Army is playing the Navy. But at the end of the day, we still fight, we still serve the same country.
You follow it?
I think it's all about coming together and having a great game and supporting each other.
There you have it, people. The Wounded Warrior Program Project. Unbelievable stuff here. Thanks to Gracie. I will say that once again, the Motor City Mad Mouse Show is presented by the Wounded Warrior Project and the National Football League. I want to thank Brian and Natalie Vines for sharing their story here. If you want to see the show on YouTube, go to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel and please hit the red subscribe button. It'll also be on audio as well. iHeartRadio will eventually pick up the show and wherever you get all your podcasts. But what a great opportunity it is. Two finer people here. And when you talk about the military, to me, it hits a soft spot because without the people in the military, we wouldn't have our freedoms today. And I think it's so important that we echo that message anytime we have an opportunity to do that. And there's no better opportunity than on the big stage in Super Bowl 39, Motor City Mad Mouse Show. I have Brian and Natalie Vines. Once again, the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Check out my book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. As I mentioned previously, their story will be in my book. It's a very inspiring story as well. So my thank you once again to Tracy Scribner. Hope everybody enjoys this. We have a lot more coverage from Super Bowl 39, or not 39, that was 20 years ago when I was in another in Jacksonville. Good recovery though. I covered that one 20 years ago. But Super Bowl 59 here in New Orleans, Louisiana, more than just a Mardi Gras. This is Super Bowl 59 and many others. And of course, can't forget the 1982 Final Four when Michael Jordan was there at the Super Bowl. And I was there as a young tyke, sitting up in the nosebleed sections. What an unbelievable thing here at the Motor City Mad Mouse Show, live from New Orleans, Louisiana. Super Bowl 59. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hope you had some energy.
Enjoy.
And hope that you can use this if you ever need an alarm opening. Tune into this show and spread the word. Thank you very much, everybody.